Internet, hello you lovelies, and welcome back to Deadpool month. This is going to be a full slate for the rest of the month leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, we ended last week with comic books. I gave you the 5 Deadpool comics I think you should read before Deadpool and Wolverine. You can check that out right here. Now let's switch over to movies and stick with Deadpool and go with the 5 Ryan Reynolds movies I think you should watch before Deadpool and Wolverine, because like Deadpool, comedy works better with drama. Without heart, the laughs just aren't as deep, and I personally think that Ryan Reynolds is one of the best comedic actors working today, but I also think that he is a very freaking talented dramatic actor, and he doesn't get the credit for the drama. He gets all the well-deserved credit for comedy, but dramatically, the dude has done a lot of stuff that people don't talk about anymore to the scale they should, and I want to talk about some of those gems, but also acknowledging this is a Deadpool movie. These aren't just my 5 favorite Ryan Reynolds movies. These are the 5 Ryan Reynolds movies I think inform his character leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine. So I'm going to lay those out. We got some deep cuts. Some of the trailers I'm putting in this are like shot on mini DV. They look like a VHS transfer. We're going way back. And by way back, I mean the 2000s, which is terrifying. If you are new to this page, please do check out everything on here, especially this month. We're doing comics, we're doing movies. I got some Hugh Jackman stuff next week. We're doing Wolverine comics later in the week. We're going to do a lot of non-spoiler reviews, spoiler reviews, Easter eggs, the whole nines. So please hit that subscription bell if you love comics and you love movies. I also do This Week in Comics, where I read 60 to 70 comics a week and give you my 9 favorites, and I try to make them more approachable, give you a brief synopsis, get you in that comic store in a more approachable way. So lots of stuff going on this page, so hit that subscription bell. And if you like this particular video, I want to know. I want to know what else to grow on this page, so please hit that like and leave a comment below and let me know what your favorite Ryan Reynolds movie is. It doesn't have to be one of these. I just want to know what your favorite Ryan Reynolds movie is, his favorite performance, and if you've seen any of these. I got some deep cuts on here, so I want to hear back from you. Without any further ado, these are the 5 Ryan Reynolds movies I think you should check out before Deadpool and Wolverine. The first is The Change-Up. Now, this is a blend of comedy and drama. It definitely leans more comedy. The next 2 films are going to lean drama. The final 2 are going to lean more comedy, but I want to find that blend. This, I think, is the best blend that really shows who Deadpool is and how great of a performer Ryan Reynolds is. It is so hard to do comedy. If you look at really great comedians, they usually transfer over to doing drama pretty well, because I think finding comedy in timing, in editing, in chemistry, in everything is so hard because laughs are so subjective. And I think playing both sides of comedy is even harder, in that you've got the straight man and you've got the more slapstick, big energy. And this movie, and the reason it's the first on this list, is because Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman both do both. They switch roles. The Change-Up is about a very responsible man. Jason Bateman, as his usual MO plays, is a very straight-laced, efficient, getting things done father. And Ryan Reynolds is, much like another movie down the list, a womanizer Lothario, a man that just lives his best life, does what he wants.
Tell me about your women.
I have been keeping company with a number of nice ladies.
What is her name?
That is Tatiana.
Wow.
I have to make her cry first,
She's
but
gorgeous.
It's worth it.
And as you might expect, they find that switching makes them appreciate the other. There's an emptiness that you find in those wanton nights, and there is a fullness you find in family, but sometimes you need to live the other way to realize the grass is always greener on the other side, and people aren't in the position you think they are all the time. But I think the reason this specifically makes me think of Deadpool is Ryan Reynolds is known for his big comedy, his big timing, but for him to play the Jason Bateman part as well as he does, for him to play the straight man, for him to really dial up the drama, but still be so funny, and to do this pitch-perfect Bateman impression shows the range, shows the skill, shows a really incredible performer. All credit to Jason Bateman as well. To play the larger-than-life, bigger Ryan Reynolds role is also fantastic. They both do such a good job being the inverse of their type.
I actually used to have kind of a crush on Dave.
Oh, no, you didn't.
No, but he's married, so obviously.
Right, obviously, obviously.
Yeah.
Superman.
I think The Change-Up is one of those movies that really shows the range in a comedic actor, the range in a dramatic actor, and in both Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman's case, the range in both. It's got a great supporting cast. It's one of the last of a certain type of comedy. Comedy comes in phases, and I think the 2000s comedy was a very specific flavor. This is one of the last of that era, and I think it's delightful. Check out The Change-Up. Check out the unrated cut, especially. All right, we're going from a balance of drama and comedy leaning more comedic to 2 films that lean way more dramatic but have great comedy elements. We're going to start with The Nines. The Nines is a movie I adore that I don't get to talk about much because not enough people have seen The Nines. This movie is a very small indie. It is a very powerful existential, conceptual film. It's an experimental film. It is a very early performance by Elle Fanning. She is a literal child here. It is a very young Melissa McCarthy. It's a young Ryan Reynolds. It's got Hope Davis in it. This movie is an indie dream in that the concepts here are so big and heady, and I still think about it. I'm not going to give the ending away. I only want to give the third act away, but I think about the concept of the nines all the time. And whenever I see a nine, I think of the nines. And the delivery of what the nines is so Matrix, existential, what is reality, but it's got some elements of grander stories, and it's got some big implications of a lot of people's worldview. And I love when a movie can make me pivot my perspective and see things differently.
Other than the world is coming to an end?
And this wouldn't work without Ryan Reynolds being so talented because he plays three roles here. He has three completely different characters in one film, and it seems like a gimmick until you get to the third act and realize why he's these three different characters, and they at times nearly interact. They have reasons for being. They serve a very big purpose, but they feel like three completely separate people. And this is why, tying into Deadpool and Wolverine, I think this is so essential. Now, most actors, I would say, because secret identity and playing two roles, Wade Wilson is barely a man. He hides his identity. He wears a mask to protect you from his face. He's not worried about who he is under the mask, but he has to put on this persona in order to stay sane. Like, the man is so broken, he's performing for himself and you. His jokes are very performative. And I love that these three performances are so, once you know where the movie goes, interesting and why those are the ways things are played. And I think this is a really incredible trio of performances. I think the supporting cast, once again, is great. It's from the producers of American Beauty. It's the writer of Go. It's got a really wonderful team behind it. I wish more people talked about it. I think about this movie all the time. Check out The Nines, especially if you studied like philosophy, sociology, theology. If you studied anything about the way the world is perceived versus reality, and if you have very interesting introspection about those things. If you personally try to figure out your own perspective on reality, this movie is definitely your jam, and I highly recommend The Nines. All right, one more that leans drama with a little dash of comedy. We're going with Chaos Theory, another movie I don't get to talk about nearly enough. Not enough people have seen this delightful film. This movie is about a man who is so organized, so on structure, that one day when that gets tilted, I think by 10 minutes, I don't remember how many minutes it is, but something changes where 10 minutes of his day that is so structured goes awry and everything falls apart. All the dominoes fall. And it's a movie about having to mess up your life in order to find your life. About how, yes, structure is important. Yes, it's important to have these things, but if you don't live, you're not alive. So living in these moments. Now, he takes it to an absolute extreme. He decides he never wants to make a decision again and lets chaos reign and writes on these note cards and lets them decide his next action by shuffling them up and living. I love what that brings. This gives a very broken man. The whole core of this is not playing these things as, haha, this would be funny to do. It's, I'm so broken and this is my next step. So the laughs are circumstantial. It's not coming from Ryan Reynolds doing jokes. It's coming from the circumstances of the brokenness of this man.
Warner Brothers Pictures.
Street Ice.
Ooh. Covers the story of a man who's getting his life together.
It's got Emily Mortimer of Newsroom fame in it. It's got Stuart Townsend, who is delightful in Queen of the Damned, amongst other things. This movie is a one-man show with a good supporting cast to make sure you feel like it's a lived-in world. But the journey you go on with Ryan Reynolds' character and the lessons learned here are really wonderful. Another movie I think about more often than the average movie, another movie that I think about when I'm getting too structured or not structured enough, this movie has helped me find balance. This movie has helped me find a sense of when I need more order or less order. And if that ain't the regenerating degenerate, I don't know what is. That is a man of pure chaos. Deadpool is absolute chaos. So it's really fun to see a very structured Ryan Reynolds, because that's not what he usually plays, but also to see the chaos come out of the man and to see a very straight-laced version of a guy find out how to live again. And now that is it's probably the one that ties the least into Deadpool, except for the chaos, but the performance of Ryan Reynolds here is really strong. The commitment to the role is so strong. Plus, it's just a really good moral movie. At the end of the day, I think comics are a great Trojan horse for morality. They teach you stories without making you join any sort of organized doctrine. They guide you through life in a way by helping you learn and grow and find these morals and lessons. And I think that's what good movies can do as well. And Chaos Theory is absolutely one of those. Highly recommend you check it out. All right, we're down to our last two, both of which lean so heavily comedy and so heavily Wade Wilson. I consider these practically auditions or rehearsals. These are rehearsals on the way from Ryan Rodney Reynolds becoming Wade Winston Wilson. It was fated. These two movies got us there. The first of which is Van Wilder. Deadpool Goes to College. This is a movie that is basically the insanity of Deadpool in a college setting. It's about a guy who basically didn't want to graduate and stayed in school deep into his 20s and just partied. He lived there and did just enough to stick around, but not enough to graduate very consciously, and lived the party life. It is so much fun. It's American Pie. If you liked American Pie, if you like that genre of comedy, this is your jam. It is like a one-man American Pie. But the supporting cast is also amazing, and speaking of American Pie, Tara Reid is delightful in it, as is Cal Penn. It's got a decent amount of American Pie alum. It was made in that time, made by that team. And what's crazy to me is I love this movie growing up. It is definitely sophomoric. It is definitely of the time. It is definitely not a lesson you should be learning and trying to implement in your adulthood, but it's so fun, and it's definitely something that you can appreciate if you like that type of comedy. But what's funny is I grew up loving this movie. I watched this movie until the VHS broke. I had it on DVD. I think now I have it on Blu-ray. And I didn't realize until I was like 30 that this is based off Bert Kreischer. Like, Bert Kreischer, the comedian that is also now world famous, this is his story. They made a movie about his life. I didn't know Van Wilder was a biopic, much less that it was off someone that I've seen live. Crazy. Just fun fact. This is Bert Kreischer's life. But Van Wilder is what you love about Deadpool. The quips, the zaniness, the antics, the bigness, all of that, but in college. So if you like Harold and Kumar, you like Deadpool, you like American Pie, this movie is absolutely for you. And frankly, it is an audition tape for Ryan Reynolds to play Deadpool. But he plays Deadpool more mature. He plays Deadpool with heart. He plays Deadpool grown up. Even if the jokes are sophomoric, the brokenness of Deadpool is what makes the character interesting. The fact that he's suffering and enduring life and trying to cope with the world is what those two dramas brought you. And then the ability to deliver the jokes and the timing and the performances as well is what this brings you. Sure, you put these together, you get Deadpool, but this is the comedic side. All right, last but not least, we have Waiting. This movie wasn't just formative to me and my sense of humor and what I see as comedy, but also pretty formative to the 2000s. This was pretty quintessential to that era of comedy. So if you're Gen Z or a young millennial, this one might have missed you. But as like right in the middle of that millennial era, this one hit hard. I remember quoting Waiting for years, far longer than I should. Also, I've worked in 4 restaurants. I've served many years of the service industry, and I think this movie rings terrifyingly true. Maybe not to the level of grotesque, because this is also very American Pie. This movie rings true to that gross out comedy genre, but it's got, again, heart like American Pie does, like Van Wilder does. That's essential. That's why the comedy works. This one, a little bit more mean-spirited at points than I think either of those two, but it still works because you care about these characters. And the murderer's row of talent in this movie. This is the movie that I fell in love with Ryan Reynolds. This is the movie where I tried to be Ryan Reynolds for a few years. I think the frosted tips, the Abercrombie shirts, the bravado. I think there was a few years where I thought I was this character, but this is also where I discovered Justin Long, who I adore, who's so impossibly funny here. This movie, I discovered David Koechner, one of the funniest comedians of Anchorman fame, amongst many, many other things. This movie's got a great performance by an insane Luis Guzman. It also has a cameo, not even a cameo, a supporting role for Dane Cook, who was huge in the comedy scene when I was growing up in Boston. Dane Cook was like the guy that got out of Boston. So this movie was everyone I wanted to see in comedy in one movie. I watched this over and over again, and this to me is a guy growing up. And I think that's really Wade Wilson. Wade Wilson has these moments of like learning, of lessons, of finding out he has a daughter and trying to be a father, and finding out he was responsible for, spoiler for a comic from 10 years ago, killing Phil Coulson because he was brainwashed into believing that a different Steve Rogers was Steve Rogers. It's a long story and it's comics, but he has to learn these things and adapt and forgive himself and mature. This character, maybe more even than Van Wilder, has to go through a maturation. And I really like this performance from Ryan Reynolds. Even looking back in the movie that's a bit dated and very sophomoric and very gross out humor, there's still so much growth in comedy here. And I think, again, this is Deadpool works at a restaurant. If Van Wilder is Deadpool goes to college and you want to see Deadpool with a day-to-day job, check out Deadpool in the service industry. That's this movie. So if you like that comedy, if you like the Ryan Reynolds style of humor, Waiting is absolutely one of those key building blocks in the guy he became. I think Van Wilder is probably his most formative, but I think Waiting is pretty close second as far as the comedy stuff. Now, I also wanted to include Smoking Aces on this list, which I think is a really good blend of comedy and drama. It leans a lot more action, but if you watch my videos, you know I like to do 5 and a bonus, and the bonus that wasn't Smoking Aces that I just had to include was, of course, Blade Trinity. Without Blade, one, we wouldn't have the MCU. Without Blade, I give full credit to Spider-Man and the X-Men, but without Blade, there is no MCU. Without Blade Trinity, however, there is no Deadpool. Not only does Ryan Reynolds not elevate his stardom as quickly, maybe missing out on the chance to leverage whatever he did to get Deadpool without like the performance that allowed that conversation to even happen. But without Blade Trinity, Ryan Reynolds has never handed a stack of Deadpool comics. He's playing Hannibal King being a protege of Blade, one of the Night Stalkers that was actually supposed to get a spin-off movie. If this had done well, it did not do as well as they had hoped, and that ended the Night Stalkers. But while playing this character who is a sword-wielding, vampire-killing vigilante, sounds a lot like another guy we know, one of the Marvel executives on the set literally gave Ryan Reynolds a stack of Deadpool comics and said, well, you already played him this way, you might as well read the source material. He wasn't playing Deadpool, but Hannibal King had effectively become Deadpool in this performance, and it was so effective that in reading those comics, he fell in love with the character, wanted to play him in a solo movie, which led to X-Men Origins Wolverine. I've got a whole thesis paper about it. I turned it into a video for Rotten Tomatoes. Check out Rotten Tomatoes, Deadpool, search that in YouTube. You'll find my video. But in that moment, it birthed this passion that is still true today. Like, the guy spent 11 years trying to get Deadpool made after Blade Trinity and incorporated Deadpool stuff, like, to the point where there's a Hello Kitty joke in Blade Trinity. The seed was planted there, and then for 11 years tried to get the movie made, accepted the role in X-Men Origins Wolverine because it was going to be someone or him, and he wanted the solo movie bad enough. He was willing to be that Wade Wilson he knew wasn't Wade Wilson. Like, as soon as you saw that mouth shut, it's not even Ryan playing him. It's a stunt guy, a very good stunt guy. But he knew that was how you locked in his performance as the character. Those ad-libs and stuff that he was able to add, that locked in this tone, ignoring the rest. But all because of Blade Trinity, and that makes me really happy. So, honorable mention to the good old Blade Trinity, which is not as good as the first two, but certainly is watchable and worth watching. There's so many great moments. Also, great soundtrack, very Wu-Tang heavy. A lot of really good Wu-Tang tracks on that soundtrack, and it's a fun time to watch. Watch the first two first, though. Have a Blade time. But that is going to do it for our 5 Ryan Reynolds movies to watch before Deadpool and Wolverine. The first of which, a blend of comedy and drama, leaning comedy, The Change Up, then 2 dramas, the first of which is The Nines, highly recommend, then Chaos Theory, also really recommend, and then some almost purely comedies that are almost like seeing Deadpool in College in Van Wilder and In a Restaurant in Waiting. Check those out. Also check out Blade Trinity. Thank our Blade stars for how we got to Deadpool, and that is going to do it. Please leave a comment below. Again, let me know your favorite Ryan Reynolds movie or favorite Ryan Reynolds performance. Honorable mention to Smoking Aces, which is also a delight. And also hit a like if you enjoyed this video. If you want to see me make more stuff like this, I'm going to be doing a Hugh Jackman one this time next week, giving 5 deep-cut Hugh Jackman performances. And then if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know in the comments below. I'll make more videos like this. I love watching every work by an actor or director, and I think making compilations like this, the deep cuts, is a lot of fun. So that is going to do it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscription. Hit that like. Hit that comment bar. Hit fucking buttons. All right. Bye, guys.